The first thing I remember is the cold, hospital cold, bright and merciless, while a monitor beside me counted my pain in tidy beeps, like suffering could be filed away. Breathe, Elena. You're almost there, the doctor said, and I tried, but my body had become a storm. Sweat ran into my eyes, my mouth tasted like pennies. And my hands kept searching for Marcus, because husbands are supposed to be anchors. In the car, he'd whispered, "You're saving the Vance legacy, Lena. You're giving Isabella the one thing she can't have," and I clung to those words. Legacy, family, belonging, like they could hold me together. But when I turned my head, Marcus wasn't at my bedside. He stood across the room by the incubator station, suit jacket still on, posture perfect like this was a press event. And Isabella, the infertile sister, I'd agreed to help, stood beside him in pearls and curled hair, calm eyes untouched by reality. They weren't watching me fight, they were watching the empty bassinet. A contraction tore through me and I cried out, and the doctor's voice cut in. "One more push, Elena." One, so I pushed until my vision tunneled, until relief came like a hollowing, and then a cry, sharp and alive, filled the room. "My baby," I rasped, lifting my head, but they didn't place him on my chest, didn't let me see his face. The doctor carried him past me and I caught only a flash, tiny fists, dark damp hair. "Please," I whispered, "just let me hold him, 1 second." Marcus didn't move. Isabella stepped closer, eyes shining. "He's perfect," she breathed, like she'd won something, and the nurses read vitals and smiled at Marcus and Isabella, while Marcus put a hand on Isabella's back, intimate and claiming. Still not touching me, looking at the baby the way a man looks at property. "Marcus," I croaked, "come here," and he glanced over, polite as a stranger. "You did great, rest." Rest, like I'd completed a task. I tried to sit up, and pain slammed me down. My arms felt empty in a way that made my bones ache, and Isabella angled her body toward the baby like she already knew where he belonged. Then the door opened, and Lady Catherine Vance entered, calm and controlled, silver hair pinned tight, heels clicking like punctuation. She looked at the baby first, then Marcus. Then Isabella, approval passing between them, before she finally looked at me. "Well," she said, "it's done. I need to hold him," I begged. "Please, just once." Her voice stayed flat. "Elena, the contract is fulfilled. You can leave now." Leave, the word didn't compute. I was still bleeding, still shaking. Marcus stepped closer, close enough to block my view of the baby but not close enough to comfort me. "Mom," he murmured, like this was a mess to clean, "don't make it harder." Lady Catherine nodded toward the nurse and a clipboard appeared, thick official paper. "Mrs. Vance," the nurse said softly, eyes down, "we need your signature," and my gaze dropped to the top page, divorce petition. My ears rang. "What is this?" Marcus wouldn't look at me. "It's clean. Quick." "It protects everyone." Protects everyone behind him. Isabella cradled the baby and hummed, rocking like this had always been her ending. And when the baby made a small hungry sound, my body surged toward him on instinct. "Don't," Lady Catherine snapped, and I stared at Marcus, waiting for him to say it was a mistake, to take my hand, to remember I was his wife. He didn't, and in that silence a second kind of pain bloomed, quiet, surgical, final. I'd told myself I could survive anything if it meant I finally belonged. Growing up without parents teaches you to treasure crumbs, an extra plate at someone's table, a holiday card with your name spelled right, and with the Vances I'd accepted so many small cuts. Lady Catherine correcting my posture, servants calling me dear like I was temporary. Marcus asking me to be understanding whenever Isabella needed something. I kept saying yes because the word family felt like shelter, now it felt like a trap, so I took the pen. My fingers shook, tears slid down my cheeks without sound, and I signed because my mind was spinning, and beneath the shock a brutal clarity clicked into place. They hadn't wanted my love, they had wanted my body. Lady Catherine took the clipboard like a receipt. Marcus turned away toward Isabella, and the baby like I'd already stopped existing, and I lay back staring at the ceiling, listening to beep, beep, beep. As the room grew quiet, realizing I was still alive and they had just erased me. They discharged me like an inconvenience. No balloons, no photo, no warm blanket tucked around my shoulders, only a plastic bag of postpartum supplies, a warning about infection, and a polite smile that didn't reach anyone's eyes. The hallway lights were too white, the floor smelled like antiseptic and something faintly metallic, like a penny pressed between fingers too long, and every step sent a dull ache up through my pelvis. A reminder my body had done something monumental, and my world had answered with paperwork. Marcus didn't walk beside me. A security guard did, respectful distance, clear message. Don't wander, don't make noise, don't forget your place. At the exit, the rain had stopped, but the night air was damp and sharp, sliding under my hospital gown like a thin blade. A black sedan waited at the curb. The same driver who used to open my door at galas, now staring straight ahead like I was a stranger. Lady Catherine stood under the awning, perfectly dry, and handed me an envelope. Your settlement, she said. For your cooperation. Inside was a check, an amount that would look generous to anyone watching, but it didn't even cover the cost of what they'd taken from me. Marcus finally spoke, soft and controlled. Take it, Elena. Don't make this ugly. Ugly, as if childbirth wasn't ugly, as if being gutted while alive wasn't ugly, and I wanted to scream his name, to claw at his suit and demand he look me in the eye. But I couldn't find the rage yet. I felt hollow, like my body was a house after a fire, still standing, everything inside turned to ash. The driver opened the back door. I got in because my legs were shaking, and the sidewalk was spinning, and the door shut with a quiet final click that sounded too much like a lock. The car drove, downtown lights streaked past, Chicago moved on like nothing had happened, people laughing outside restaurants, a couple arguing on a corner. A man walking a dog in a tiny coat, and I pressed my palm to my abdomen, feeling the bandage, the tenderness, the ache, trying to cling to facts. You signed a contract, you agreed to this. You told yourself it was noble. But something inside me kept whispering, no, this isn't what you agreed to. The driver dropped me at a motel with a flickering vacancy sign and doors that opened to the parking lot. The air smelled like cigarette smoke, soaked into old curtains. The carpet felt damp like it had learned to give up trying, and in the tiny bathroom I stared at my reflection. Swollen face, matted hair, pale lips, looking like a woman used and discarded. I slid down the wall onto cold tile, the hospital wristband still on my arm like a joke, and then my hand brushed my phone and memory hit me. In the recovery room. While Lady Catherine spoke to the nurse and Marcus's back was turned, I'd lifted my phone and snapped photos of the documents on the clipboard, not because I was clever, but because some orphan part of me still didn't trust family when it smiled. My fingers shook as I opened the gallery, blurred crooked shots of medical forms, clinic consent pages, the surrogacy contract, the IVF transfer record, the intended parents section. I zoomed in until the letters turned jagged. Marcus Vance, intended father. Isabella Vance, intended mother. My stomach rolled. A thought tried to comfort me. He's her brother, it's legal, it's twisted, but maybe it's real. Until I saw the clinic header, a private fertility center in Oakbrook. And the physician's signature I recognized from their holiday dinners. The Dr. Isabella used to brag about with that empty smile. He's discreet. He makes miracles happen. I wiped my cheeks and kept scrolling, reading like my life depended on it, because maybe it did, until the section on genetic material stopped my blood cold. Patient, EV. Retrieval date, 14 months prior, EV my initials. I stared until the letters blurred, telling myself it had to mean something else, but my body understood before my brain could catch up, the nausea, the shaking. The throat tightening like a fist. Because I had never done an egg retrieval for Isabella, I had never agreed to that, and the room tilted. I climbed onto the bed and pulled my knees to my chest, holding myself the way I used to in unfamiliar foster homes, then opened my browser and typed Isabella's name, because I'd never searched her. Why would I? She was family, sister, tragic and glossy images flooded the screen, galas, yachts, designer heels. I scrolled deeper into older posts, tagged photos, a timeline, until I found it buried like a secret someone thought would never be unearthed. A society blog from years ago with a blurry photo of Marcus, stepping out of a hotel in Aspen, laughing, Isabella's arm looped through his like it belonged there. The caption read, Marcus Vance and longtime companion Isabella, longtime companion, not sister, my lungs forgot how to work. I clicked another link, another photo, Marcus and Isabella younger pressed close at a beach party with comments. You two are finally official, power couple. Is this the future Mrs. Vance? My fingers went numb. The motel walls pressed in like they wanted to witness the moment I broke. Because Isabella wasn't infertile, Isabella wasn't family. Isabella was the mistress. And Lady Catherine had called her sister to make the lie holy enough to swallow. A sound escaped me, half laugh, half sob, and I covered my mouth, but it kept coming, shaking me from the inside out. So that was it. I wasn't a surrogate. I was an incubator, a clean vessel with a marriage certificate, a body they could rent without the scandal of hiring a stranger. And Marcus had stood beside me for months, kissed my forehead, called me brave, told me he loved me, while he built a nursery for another woman's dream. I rolled onto my side and pressed my hand to my abdomen again, empty, aching, furious, and in that cheap silence a new emotion rose, slow and sharp and steady, not hysteria, not chaos, clarity. I saved the photos to a hidden folder, backed them up to the cloud, emailed them to a new account with a password no one could guess, then stared at the ceiling and whispered, barely audible. They think it's over. My voice didn't shake. It's not. 3 months is long enough for a wound to scab but not long enough to heal. My body recovered quietly, stubbornly, bruises fading, the incision lines softening. Strangers calling it back to normal. But inside, I lived in a different weather system, waking every morning with the same thought. Somewhere in the city, my baby is learning someone else's voice. I didn't collapse into movie grief. I became precise. Eating on schedule, sleeping in blocks, keeping blood work appointments, signing nothing without reading twice, making lists and backups. Building a plan the way an orphan builds safety, with proof. My first stop wasn't the Vance mansion. It was the clinic, where I walked into the Oak Brook Fertility Center in a simple black coat and a face that made receptionists nervous. Air smelling like citrus disinfectant and curated calm, soft music soothing desperate people. I smiled like I belonged and asked for my records, retrieval and transfer documentation, and when the receptionist stalled with procedures, I leaned in and murmured that falsifying consent is a felony. Watching recognition flicker at the Vance name on my ID, letting her think I was still one of them. 2 days later, I opened a secure link in my motel room like a verdict, and found PDFs and forms and the smoking gun. A consent page with my name typed neatly at the bottom, and a signature scrawled above it in a hand that wasn't mine. Bad forgery, wrong curve, wrong pressure. And I realized Marcus knew. Which meant someone else signed it, someone Lady Catherine trusted. I kept reading because truth doesn't care if you're ready, and there it was in daylight. Oh, sight. Elena Vance, my baby, mine and blood. Not just spirit, and the betrayal changed shape from use to theft. I didn't call Marcus or storm the gates because smart revenge is patient. I called a lawyer, Tessa Monroe, sharp and lethal. Hair in a tight bun like she had no time for excuses, and when she read the evidence, she called it what it was. Fraud. The Vances would deny it, she said, but paper is patient and DNA is louder than lies. So we planned my return in public, because the Vances didn't fear truth, they feared humiliation. The christening was announced like royalty, a celebration of baby Alexander Vance, heir to the Vance legacy, at St. Alden's Cathedral with a reception at the estate, senators and donors and old money gathered, Lady Catherine loving the ceremony because it looked like God was on her side. Tessa secured a temporary court order, quiet, urgent, emergency custody review, and I secured Dr. Priya Desai, an independent geneticist with a conscience, and on the morning of the christening I faced the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Not my face, my eyes. Clear, empty of pleading. Full of steel. I wore dark blue, the color of deep water and storms that don't announce themselves until they're overhead, and when we entered the cathedral, thick with incense and wealth. Organ music floating through stone, heads turned and whispers rose, because the woman who was supposed to be gone had walked back in. Marcus stood at the front holding my baby in a gown worth more than my first year's rent, Isabella glowing in cream like a saint, Lady Catherine cold in the first pew. And Marcus's mask slipped for a second, fear, before he tried to recover, ready to order me out and rewrite reality. But Tessa stepped forward, calm as a gavel, and served the legal notice. Dr. Desai followed with the sealed DNA results. Murmurs spread like wind through dry leaves. Isabella's face went pale. Lady Catherine snarled that it was outrageous. And I stepped forward so they could finally see me. Not surrogate, not orphan, not disposable wife. The mother, asking Marcus in a voice that carried through stone and silence. Whose child is he, really? And for the first time, he had no lie ready. In court, the air smelled like paper and fear, and the Vances arrived dressed for applause. Marcus sharp in navy, Isabella in pearls. Lady Catherine in elegance like armor, confident they could buy their way out, while I came quietly with truth under my arm. Weighing 3 months of sutures, and a newborn's cry I wasn't allowed to hold. The judge listened like a doctor diagnosing denial, and when Tessa laid out the fraud, Isabella not a sister but a romantic partner, forged consent. My genetic material used without informed consent. Marcus tried to perform the concerned husband, but the judge demanded answers. And the pause when she asked if Isabella was really his sister was the moment he died in that room. Evidence was placed, photos, captions, posts, longtime companion, and the judge called it fraud. Then the second strike landed, the Vance Trust, written by the late grandfather, stating the heir must be the biological child of a legally married Vance spouse, with the mother holding primary custodial authority in cases of fraud or coercion. Lady Catherine's breath caught. Marcus was ordered to sit, and their empire shifted not to me but to my child, and since I was his mother, I became the gate. The judge declared the surrogacy contract void, granted me full temporary custody pending investigation, and outside the courthouse winter air hit my face like baptism. Cold, honest. Clean, while a caseworker placed my baby into my arms for the first time. Heavier than I expected, warm, real, his fingers curling around mine like a promise. Something in my chest breaking open into release. Behind me cameras shouted, Isabella sobbed, Lady Catherine looked older by years, and they finally understood. They wanted an heir, a crown, control over legacy with contracts and lies. But they forgot something ancient and unmovable. A mother is not a vessel. A mother is a force, and as I kissed my son's forehead, I whispered the only truth that mattered. They wanted an heir so badly, they forgot that a mother never gives up her crown.